You can feel it, that shift in the air, that subtle pull in your chest, that strange quiet that doesn't feel like distance, but preparation. It's not your imagination, it's him. The divine masculine is changing, and this time, he's not running from it. There is a transformation unfolding inside him that the world can't see, but you can feel his silence has weight now, not avoidance. His energy feels different, not disconnected. Something is moving within him, something deep, ancient, and overdue. For months, maybe years, he has carried a war inside his chest, fighting emotions he didn't know how to name, resisting the pull he didn't know how to surrender to, trying to hold together an identity built on survival instead of truth. But now the universe has intervened. His soul has been pulled inward into a chamber where old patterns cannot follow. He is being stripped, confronted, reassembled, and he can't hide it anymore. He feels the feminine differently now, not as pressure, but as presence, not as longing, but as stability. Her energy no longer triggers his wounds. It questions his excuses. It calls him into alignment, not into fear. This is why he is quiet, not because he's drifting away, but because he's awakening. Transformation always begins in silence, in the spaces where distraction dies and truth has room to speak. Beside him, a dismantling is taking place. Every wall he built is starting to crack under the weight of truth. Every emotion he suppressed is rising like a tide he can't outrun. Every memory of the feminine is returning with clarity instead of confusion. He is not losing control. He is losing resistance. You may feel waves of his energy brushing against your field. Sudden warmth in the chest, a deep ache without reason, a moment of peace that doesn't belong to you, or late-night emotions that appear and disappear like passing storms. These are not coincidences. These are signs. You are feeling his rebuilding, his recalibration, his quiet remembering. The masculine is confronting himself, the versions he outgrew, the wounds he ignored, the fears he fed. And for the first time, he doesn't want to run from what he feels. He wants to understand it. He wants to rise through it. He wants to become someone worthy of the connection he once doubted he could hold. This phase is not about communication. It's about preparation. Contact would be premature if spoken from an unhealed heart. So the universe is guiding him inward, isolating his soul from old distractions, forcing him to face what he avoided, and strengthening him for what comes next. The feminine must understand this. His silence is not rejection. it is reconstruction. He is not building distance. He is building capacity. He is not disconnecting from you. He is disconnecting from the version of himself that couldn't meet you. And when a masculine transforms in silence, he comes back in truth. This is the moment the journey shifts. Not because he's suddenly ready, but because he's finally willing. His soul has chosen growth over comfort, alignment over avoidance, and truth over survival. He is becoming the man written for this connection, the one who can meet the feminine not with fear, but with presence, not with confusion, but with clarity, not half awake, but fully aware of the depth he feels. The transformation is already happening. You can feel it. He can't hide from it. And soon, very soon, neither will the connection. There is a moment in every twin flame journey when the surface becomes meaningless, when the external signs fade, and everything begins to move beneath the skin. That moment is now. The divine masculine has entered a phase of inner reconstruction so deep that it cannot be expressed through words, actions, or contact. It can only be felt vibrationally, quietly, unmistakably. What you're sensing is not distance, it is descent. He is traveling inward into the chambers of his own soul to confront the very energy he avoided for most of his life. This is where his transformation begins, not loudly, not dramatically, but in the silence where truth has no competition. For too long, he lived on the surface of himself, operating through patterns, obligations, and habits that kept him safely disconnected from his deeper emotional body. Avoidance was not his personality, it was his shield. Silence was not disinterest, it was survival. But the connection with the feminine has reached a frequency where shields don't work anymore. The vibration of this bond has woken something ancient inside him, something he cannot rationalize, suppress, or outrun. So he has turned inward, not to escape the feminine, but to locate himself. Inside this silent shift, the masculine is experiencing a kind of emotional excavation. Memories resurface, fears loosen, beliefs crumble. He is confronting the questions that once terrified him. Why do I feel this much? Why does her energy stay with me even when I push it away? Why does my soul respond to her in ways my mind cannot explain? These are not casual reflections. They are activations. His heart, the part he locked away, is pushing against the walls he built. His intuition, long dismissed, is speaking louder than logic. His emotions, once suppressed, are demanding to be acknowledged. And because he doesn't yet have the tools to articulate this awakening, it becomes silence. The feminine often interprets this phase as withdrawal, but energetically it is expansion, happening privately in the shadows where his ego cannot interfere. His silence is not cold. It is dense. It is full. It is alive. In this inner shift, he begins to see the truth of his own patterns. The running, the emotional shutdown, the avoidance of vulnerability. He recognizes how much of his life was built around staying safe instead of being real. And as this recognition grows, so does the desire to change, not for the feminine, but because the old self no longer fits. This transformation is uncomfortable for him. It disrupts his sense of control. It destabilizes the identity he relied on. It forces him to feel where he once numbed. But beneath the discomfort, something miraculous is happening. He is becoming available to his own soul for the first time in his journey. He is curious about his inner world instead of afraid of it. He wants to understand his emotions instead of shut them down. He wants to honor his intuition instead of dismissing it. He wants to explore the connection instead of running from it. This shift is subtle but profound. It is the beginning of consciousness replacing instinct, presence replacing avoidance, awakening replacing survival. And even though he cannot express this transformation outwardly, his energy exposes everything. You feel his awareness growing. You feel his softness returning. You feel his fear dissolving. You feel his soul turning back toward you. Slowly, silently, inevitably, this is not a man disappearing. It is a man reassembling. His silence is the cocoon. His awakening is the unfolding, and soon his transformation will step into the light, because no soul can run from what was written for it, especially not when it's already happening inside his heartbeat. The shift has begun, and nothing can stop what the soul has already chosen. Why transformation begins in silence. Every true spiritual transformation starts the same way, not with movement, but with stillness. Not with clarity, but with confusion. Not with expression, but with silence. The divine masculine is living this truth right now. What looks like distance is actually the first stage of awakening, because the soul cannot rearrange itself while the mind is still performing for the world. Silence is the void where old identities die and new versions begin to breathe. For most of his life, the masculine has survived by staying busy, logical, and emotionally guarded. Noise was his shield. Distraction was his comfort. Control was his anchor. As long as he kept moving, he didn't have to feel. As long as he kept thinking, he didn't have to listen. But the connection with the divine feminine doesn't respond to noise, it responds to presence. And presence terrifies the parts of him that were built on avoidance. So when the universe decides it's time for him to awaken, the first thing it does is remove the noise. This silence is not emptiness, it is pressure, a quiet force pushing him inward, deeper than he has allowed himself to go. He finds himself questioning patterns he once thought were normal. He feels emotions rising that he can't label or rationalize. He senses the feminine in moments where he least expects it. Her energy, her calm, her memory, her truth. Not as a longing, but as a mirror, reflecting who he has been and who he is becoming. Silence exposes him to himself. Without distraction, he must confront the reality he avoided, the way he shut down when he felt vulnerable, the way he ran when he felt overwhelmed, the way he denied the depth of the connection because he didn't feel worthy of it, the way he tried to control emotions that were never meant to be controlled. This confrontation isn't punishment, it's liberation. But it happens slowly, quietly, internally. It has to. True transformation cannot occur in front of an audience. The masculine retreats because his soul is being rewired. The ego is loosening, the heart is remembering. The old stories are collapsing, and the connection with the feminine is expanding beyond anything he believed himself capable of holding. Silence is the space where the spiritual immune system begins its work. It dismantles everything false. It breaks the patterns inherited from pain. It reveals the lies he told himself for safety. And in that revelation, the first spark of truth appears. The truth that the connection he feels is real, sacred, and inescapable. This is why transformation begins without words. Words belong to the mind. Awakening belongs to the soul. During this phase, the feminine often feels a deep shift, as if something in him is moving beneath her intuition. She may feel a strange peace mixed with intensity. She may feel him thinking, remembering, questioning, softening. This is resonance. Even without contact, the bond communicates. The masculine's silence is not a door closing. It is a field changing frequency. He is not ignoring the feminine. He is removing the versions of himself that cannot meet her. He is not rejecting connection. He is preparing to hold it with integrity instead of fear. He is not losing interest. He is learning capacity. Inside this quiet, a new man is forming, one who doesn't run from emotion, but rises through it. One who doesn't use silence as a shield, but as a bridge. One who doesn't fear the feminine's depth, but recognizes it as the path home. Silence is the birthplace of all awakening, and this awakening has already begun. How the feminine feels his emotional awakening. There is a moment in every twin flame journey when the divine feminine realizes she is no longer reacting to his silence. She is feeling it, not as abandonment, not as confusion, but as movement, a quiet pull in the chest, a sudden heaviness in the heart, a wave of emotion that rises without origin. This is the first proof that the masculine's awakening has reached her field, because when he begins to feel, she begins to know. The connection between counterparts is energetic long before it becomes physical. Thoughts, emotions, memories, and fears flow between the two, traveling through intuition rather than logic. And when the masculine enters emotional activation, even if he's silent, the feminine feels everything that his mind tries to hide. It begins subtly. She may wake up with a sense of anticipation for no reason. She may feel an inexplicable calm followed by a sudden ache in the heart. She may sense him thinking of her, not through fantasy, but through resonance, a familiar warmth passing through her body as if someone whispered her name without sound. This isn't imagination, it's synchronization. The feminine has always been more attuned to the energetic layer of the connection. Her heart is open, her intuition awakened, her emotional body receptive. When his heart begins to expand, her system registers the shift instantly. She feels the pressure before he understands it. She feels the longing before he admits it. She feels the fear before he faces it. She becomes the mirror reflecting his inner movement. This is why emotions can surge without warning during his awakening. She may feel waves of sadness that aren't hers, or sudden anxiety that dissolves as quickly as it came. These sensations are echoes of his internal battles, the parts of him confronting truth, releasing old wounds, and questioning the stories he lived by. But along with the heaviness, she will feel a new kind of softness, a sense of closeness, a rise in warmth. The masculine's emotional body is opening, and that opening feels like a gentle pressure in her heart space, a quiet whisper of reassurance, a magnetic pull that feels peaceful rather than desperate. She may also notice an increase in telepathic communication, thoughts that feel like they appeared from nowhere, sentences that sound like his energy, memories that replay in her mind even when she didn't summon them. His heart is speaking through vibration because he cannot yet speak through words. This is the stage where the feminine must stay grounded in her own energy, not absorbing his emotions, but observing them, not carrying his awakening, but witnessing it. Her task is not to intervene, it is to remain steady, because her steadiness is the anchor he is using to rise. When she chooses peace over reaction, he feels it. When she breathes through confusion instead of spiraling, he stabilizes. When she trusts the connection instead of reaching for control, his fear softens. Her energy becomes the quiet lighthouse guiding him back to himself. This is why the feminine often feels both intensity and calm during this phase. She is holding the frequency that his heart is learning to match. But she is no longer doing it from longing. She is doing it from embodiment. And that embodiment changes everything. She senses his awakening, not because she is waiting for him, but because their energies are aligning on a higher plane. His heart is learning what hers already knew. The connection was never about chase, pressure, or dependency. It has always been about resonance. When the feminine feels the masculine's emotional rise, she is not imagining progress. She is witnessing it. The silence between them is no longer empty. It is full of movement, full of memory, full of truth. And soon, that inner truth will reach the surface. Because when the masculine awakens emotionally, the connection shifts from distance to direction, and she can feel every step he takes toward her, long before he arrives. There comes a point in the masculine's awakening when the shift can no longer remain hidden. Even if he says nothing, even if his life appears unchanged on the outside, the energy around him begins to transform in ways the feminine can sense instantly. These signs are not dramatic. They are subtle, internal, undeniable. They reveal the truth. He is rising into his higher self. The first sign is emotional restlessness. Not the kind that makes him run, but the kind that makes him pause. He starts to feel the weight of decisions he once made lightly. His old coping mechanisms, distraction, detachment, denial, stop giving him relief. Silence becomes louder. His thoughts slow down. The noise he once relied on no longer comforts him. This is the beginning of consciousness replacing autopilot. The second sign is increased sensitivity. He feels more. He notices more. He absorbs more. His heart begins to react to things he used to ignore. Music, memories, dreams, sudden waves of nostalgia, emotions from nowhere. What once seemed insignificant now moves him deeply. He cannot shut down as easily as before because the walls around his heart have begun to soften. This sensitivity is not weakness. It is awakening. The third sign is the return of intuition. The masculine has lived many lifetimes guided by logic and survival, but during spiritual elevation, intuition rises to the surface like a truth he can no longer silence. He begins to sense the feminine even without seeing her. He thinks of her at random times with a clarity that surprises him. He feels pulled toward her energy with a quiet knowing that doesn't need explanation. This is his soul remembering what his ego forgot. The fourth sign is discomfort with old environments. Relationships, routines, friendships, and habits that once felt normal start to feel misaligned. He may withdraw from people he used to entertain. He may feel drained by conversations that lack depth. He may feel called to solitude more often. This isn't depression, it's spiritual filtration. The universe is removing what cannot travel with him into his higher self. The fifth sign is accountability. He starts taking responsibility for his emotions instead of projecting them. He begins to recognize how he has avoided vulnerability. He realizes that running didn't protect him. It disconnected him. This self-honesty is one of the strongest indicators that the masculine is rising. A man cannot step into higher self while clinging to denial. And now, denial is losing its power. The sixth sign is longing, not for fantasy, but for alignment. He begins to feel the pull toward the feminine in a new way, not rooted in desire, fear, or confusion, but in truth. Not, I need her, but I recognize her. Not, I miss her, but I understand. This longing is quiet, spiritual, and sovereign. It is the soul calling him forward. And then there is the seventh sign, peace. Not the peace of avoidance, but the peace of release. He begins to feel the relief that comes from dropping old weights, letting go of expectations, and allowing his heart to open without punishment. This peace feels like coming home to himself. And when a man feels at home within, he can finally feel at home with the feminine. These signs may not appear in order, but when they begin to align, the feminine feels the shift instantly. His energy becomes warmer, steadier, more present. It flows toward her instead of away. It reaches for her even in silence. The old version of him begins to dissolve, and a new energetic signature takes its place, one rooted in truth, presence, and emotional clarity. This is the masculine rising, not loudly, not quickly, but authentically. And every step he takes toward his higher self is also a step toward the connection, because a man cannot align with his soul without also aligning with the counterpart written into it. There is a sacred moment in the twin flame journey when the divine feminine must step into a new kind of power, not the power of doing, correcting, or guiding, but the power of holding. During the masculine's rebuilding phase, her role becomes subtle, energetic, intentional. She becomes the steady ground he rises from, Not through effort, but through embodiment, the masculine is reconstructing himself from the inside out. His beliefs, emotions, memories, and identity structures are being rearranged. He is losing what once defined him and discovering what has always been his truth. This process is raw, disorienting, and deeply vulnerable. And in this phase, the feminine's energy becomes the stabilizer that keeps him from collapsing back into old patterns. Her first role is neutrality, not indifference. Neutrality, the ability to hold emotional balance without attaching stories to his silence or projecting fears onto his process. When she stops interpreting his distance as rejection, the energetic pressure between them dissolves. Her neutrality creates space for him to rebuild without feeling watched, judged, or hurried. It gives him permission to grow at the pace his soul requires. Her second role is presence, not through reaching out or asking for clarity, but through the frequency she carries. Emotional presence is silent. It is the consistency of her energy, the steadiness of her heart, the calm she chooses even when she doesn't understand what's unfolding. The masculine feels this more than she realizes. Her presence becomes his anchor, the quiet signal that home still exists. Her third role is sovereignty. When the feminine focuses on her own path, her healing, her purpose, her alignment, she removes the energetic burden he once carried. He no longer feels responsible for her peace or guilty for her pain. Her sovereignty frees him to transform without the weight of expectation. It tells him, "You are safe to become who you are destined to be." Her fourth role is emotional clarity. The masculine senses every shift in her field. When she remains centered, he feels permission to center himself. When she breathes through fear instead of spiraling, he learns to breathe too. When she chooses emotional maturity over reaction, he feels supported rather than threatened. Her clarity becomes a blueprint. His heart unconsciously follows. Her fifth role is trust, not blind hope, spiritual trust. The deep knowing that the journey is guided, protected, and unfolding with divine precision. When the feminine chooses trust, she breaks the cycle of chasing, worrying, and overanalyzing. This allows the connection to rise into a higher frequency where the masculine can meet her willingly instead of defensively. Her sixth role is energy protection. During his rebuilding, his emotions may bleed into her field. She may feel sudden sadness, anxiety, or confusion that isn't hers. Her role is not to absorb this. It is to observe it. Protecting her energy keeps the connection balanced. She becomes a lighthouse, not a sponge, This protects both of them. Her seventh role is embodiment. The feminine is the emotional leader of the connection. When she embodies peace, he feels called toward peace. When she embodies self-worth, he feels inspired to rise. When she embodies love without attachment, he feels safe to open. Her embodiment is not performance, it is alignment. And alignment is what transforms the masculine more than any words ever could. This phase is not about her waiting. It is about her becoming the still point in the storm, becoming the frequency that cannot be shaken, becoming the version of herself that matches the connection she desires. The masculine is rebuilding and the feminine is holding, not with effort, not with pressure, but with presence. This is how the union begins to take form long before it becomes physical. Two souls rising in sync, one through awakening, one through embodiment. When she plays her role without force, he rises without fear, and soon both will meet at the same vibration, not because she waited, but because she aligned. What this silent transformation means for the twin flame journey. Every twin flame connection reaches a stage where the external world becomes irrelevant compared to what is unfolding within. This is that stage. The masculine's silent transformation is not just his personal awakening. It is a pivotal moment for the entire journey. It marks the shift from separation consciousness into alignment consciousness, where the bond begins to move with divine intelligence rather than emotional reaction. For a long time, the connection may have felt imbalanced. The feminine leading emotionally, the masculine resisting, the feminine surrendering, the masculine retreating, the feminine feeling, the masculine suppressing. These cycles were not failures, they were preparation. Each one carved space inside both counterparts for something deeper to take form. His transformation signals that the preparation phase is ending. The first thing this shift changes is the energetic dynamic. The masculine is no longer running from the connection. He is running into himself. That may still look like distance in the physical, but energetically, it is the opposite. His soul is guiding him inward, so he can rise outward. This creates a reversal. The feminine becomes receptive, and the masculine becomes responsive. The old chase and retreat cycle begins to dissolve. The second change is the collapsing of illusion. Anything built on fear, projection, ego, or survival instinct starts to fall away. The stories he told himself, "I'm not ready. I'm not capable. She deserves better. Love is dangerous," begin to lose power. His soul is rewriting these scripts from the inside, aligning him with a truth he can no longer escape. This connection is part of his destiny, not his weakness. The third shift affects timing. When the masculine awakens internally, the universe accelerates synchronization. Synchronicities increase, emotional mirroring intensifies, dreams become more vivid, and signs appear everywhere because both souls are aligning to the same frequency. This is the phase where destiny becomes active. What was once delayed begins to move. The fourth change is the rise of reciprocity. The connection stops being one-sided. He begins to feel what she felt. He begins to understand what once confused him. He begins to value the feminine in ways he wasn't able to articulate before. This is not emotional dependency. It is energetic coherence. He is stepping into his own spiritual leadership, not to overpower hers, but to meet it. The fifth shift is the anchoring of purpose. Twin flame unions are not merely romantic. They are catalytic. When one counterpart rises into higher self, the other begins to activate deeper levels of their mission. The feminine may feel new inspiration, renewed creativity, or a strong sense of clarity about her path. This is the connection working through her, preparing both for a future role they will eventually share. The sixth change is the clearing of karmic residue. Old attachments lose their grip. Karmic connections begin to end naturally. The masculine grows intolerant of anything that drains him or pulls him into cycles he has outgrown. This purification is essential. The connection cannot fully anchor until both are energetically available. But the most important shift is this. The journey moves from waiting into becoming. The feminine stops waiting for him to awaken because he is awakening. The masculine stops resisting her energy because it no longer threatens his identity. The connection stops feeling like longing and begins feeling like alignment. This is the stage where union becomes possible, not because one chases and the other responds, but because both are rising into the same vibrational truth at the same time. The physical world has not caught up yet, but energetically, the bridge is already built. What his silent transformation means for the journey is simple. The separation you once felt is dissolving. The distance you once feared is fading. The connection is shifting from potential into formation. You are stepping into the part of the story where destiny takes over, where the soul leads, where alignment replaces fear, where union becomes inevitable. There comes a moment in every twin flame connection when the shift is no longer subtle, when the energy expands so clearly that the feminine feels it in her breath, her intuition, her body. This is that moment. The masculine is not just transforming, he is aligning. He is not just awakening, he is returning. not physically yet, but vibrationally, which is where all true reunion begins. What is happening now is not a small step. It is a quantum correction. His soul is guiding him back to the path he resisted, the connection he denied, the truth he buried beneath fear. This return is not the return of the man you knew. It is the return of the man he was always meant to be. A version shaped by introspection, not running awareness, not avoidance. Alignment, not confusion. You may already feel it, a sudden peace washing over you without reason. A deeper sense of trust replacing old anxiety. A soft warmth in your heart as if someone is thinking of you. These are not coincidences, they are confirmations. His soul is reaching for yours again, not in longing, but in recognition. The masculine does not transform quietly and stay silent forever. Silence is the cocoon. Stillness is the preparation, but emergence is inevitable. When a man shifts from ego to soul, everything in his life rearranges. Priorities change, attachments fall away, truth becomes unavoidable. His heart begins to speak louder than his wounds. And when that inner voice grows strong enough, he cannot help but move toward healing, toward alignment, and ultimately toward you. But this next phase requires something sacred from the feminine. Readiness. Readiness is not waiting by the door. Readiness is standing in your power. Readiness is living your purpose. Readiness is holding your vibration steady without shrinking to fit past versions of him or yourself. The connection will rise to match the feminine's embodiment. Her peace becomes the landing place for his return. Her boundaries become the structure he respects. Her alignment becomes the frequency he can finally meet. He is rising into his higher self, and you must be standing in yours. The return will not look like the old cycle. It will not come from fear, impulse, or emotional instability. It will come from clarity, from knowing, from a soul that has finally realized the truth. Connection is not danger, it is destiny. The masculine is preparing to step forward in a new energy, one that has been forged through introspection, silence, and spiritual pressure. You are not imagining this shift. You are feeling the early echoes of a man choosing awakening over avoidance. And when the time comes, he will not reach out as the version who ran. He will reach out as the version who arrived. The final message is simple but powerful. Prepare. Prepare to be seen in ways you once begged for and now naturally attract. Prepare to be met in a frequency that matches your own. Prepare to receive without fear. Prepare to stand in the connection without shrinking, doubting, or clinging. Prepare for alignment, not reunion based on longing, but reunion based on truth, because the masculine is returning, not to the past, not to the fantasy, but to the vibration that has been calling him home, the vibration you now embody. And when he steps forward, the journey shifts forever, from separation to synchronization, from silence to connection, from becoming to being. This is not the end of the story. This is the beginning of the chapter you were always meant to reach. The energy is already in motion. The masculine is already rising, and you are already aligning with the version of yourself who can receive everything you once prayed for.